Сәлем достар, менің Америкадағы әңгіме атты каналыма қош келдіңіздер. Менің Инстаграм желісіндегі Мадинамен алғашқы сұхбатымда ол американдық жігітке күйеуге шығып, қазір ата енесімен тұратындығы туралы айтып берген. Төмендегі сілтеме арқылы сол подкастты толығымен көре аласыздар. Ал қазір менің қасымда сол Мадинаның жолдасы Томас. Сәлем, Томас.
Сәлем, Багдад.
Thank you for taking the time and agreeing to do this interview with me.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So, okay, let's start. Бірінші сұрақ, жалпы Орта Азияға деген, Қазақстан тарихына деген қызығушылығын қайдан пайда болды? First question, where did your interest in Kazakh history and Central Asia history come from?
Okay, well, there was not a single moment that I didn't have a cinematic epiphany that made me interested in Central Asian history. It kind of happened gradually over time. I was reading through my father's books when I was 11 or 12 because my dad was a U.S. naval officer. He was a pilot by training, but he later worked in the North American Aerospace Command.
Oh, wow.
Yes, which is a place you would want to be if there was a Cold War standoff between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. So he knew a lot about Soviet weapons, Soviet history. So thumbing through his books, that's when I first learned about this place in Kazakhstan. That's when I first learned about Kazakhstan, was through reading about the Baikonur Cosmodrome.
Wow.
And I didn't know anything else about Kazakhstan at that time. I just thought it was maybe Russia's backyard, but to a 12-year-old with a Cold War imagination, Baikonur sounded like the edge of the universe. And maybe I learned more about, cotton extraction in the case of Uzbekistan, or the occasional underground nuclear explosion. There's a great book on this. It's called The Atomic Step. I really recommend it. But anyway, that was my first experience. And then over time, I learned a lot more. I learned that Central Asia is not anybody's backyard. It's a very magical place, very culturally rich and very historically fascinating. It's a mosaic of Turkic, Slavic, Persian, Mongol influences. It has been shaped by nomadic civilizations, Islamic scholarship, steppe traditions, and I found that to be fascinating. It was like the crossroads of ideas, of empires, and it just seemed that it was like one of the world's best kept secrets, Central Asia. And I'm the kind of person that likes to open secret doors. So.
Wow, I'm really impressed by your knowledge about Central Asia and Kazakhstan, because most Americans don't know about, even don't know where it is.
Can't point it on a map, right?
Yeah.
I'm well aware. Yeah.
Yeah. Өте керемет жауап деп ойлаймын. Ал келесі сұрақ, жалпы сені ерекше әсерлендірген, шабыттандырған қазақтың тарихи тұлғасы бар ма? Is there a Kazakh historical figure that really impressed or inspired you?
Well, there are many, but as someone who's really interested in history and politics, I'm naturally drawn to political figures. I would say Ahmed Baidarsanoli, one of the founders of the Alash autonomy. And if you've ever looked at a picture of him, he is Kazakhstan's answer to Teddy Roosevelt, one of my favorite presidents, the 26th president of the United States. They both had that commanding stare, the same iconic mustache, which I also happen to have. And they had the same intellectual gravitas. And I mean, this man, he was a linguist, he was a poet, someone who reformed the Kazakh script. And I really find them inspiring because they truly try to found a nation amidst all the geopolitical chaos of the Bolshevik revolution. And these people, they were serious about building a state that both respected tradition and progress. And this not only goes to Baidarsanoli, but also Prime Minister Bukhakanov. So I really find them inspiring. Ultimately, their dreams were crushed by the Soviet regime, but they really championed education and good governance. And I find myself reflected in men like, obviously, Teddy Roosevelt, Baitar Sonuli, people who championed education and good governance. And also, I think their legacy, although they died, they were killed, their legacy remains cornerstone of Kazakh identity, and anybody who finds power and meaning in ideas, language, and culture.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Біздің алаштың батырлары туралы осындай жылы сөздер есту шетел азаматынан мен үшін өте үлкен құрмет. Шынымды айтсам, өте ризамын. Thank you for your answer.
Of course.
So, егер сен мысал үшін Netflix телесериалын түсіретін болсаң, Қазақстан тарихы жайлы, ол не туралы болар еді? If you were to create a Netflix series about Kazakh history, what would it be about?
Well, this one might be a little controversial. So I can tell you what Netflix might do and what I want to do. Like that part of history, but like the Batir culture in history.
Oh, wow.
I would make a show about that. I'm more interested in tragedy, and this is obviously very controversial, but many Western audiences don't know about what happened in the Kazakh famine from 1930 to 1933. I mean, maybe Asharshılıq, yeah. Obviously, a horrible tragedy. I mean, the Kazakhs were the most affected. Out of all the nationalities, they lost the most percentage-wise. I mean, they became a minority, as you know, in their own country, and many people were forcibly deported to Kazakhstan. So there are people that know about the Holodomor. Not a lot of people know about this period in history, but maybe my show would follow a person who gets deported to Kazakhstan during this time, the famine from 1930 to 1933. So he gets sent to a gulag. He's an enemy of the state. He goes there. It's freezing. This is just imagine. You can probably imagine, right?
Yeah.
The brutal freezing conditions on the steppe on a gulag. Yeah. And he's being starved to death. He's being worked to death. But maybe he sees other people outside of the camp that are throwing rocks at him. And then he realizes that they're not rocks. It's kurt.
Yeah, of course.
It's a protein-packed survival food. And maybe just that gives him a little bit of hope to keep going. It's a beautiful act of defiance, but it's also an act of solidarity. Maybe he finds out that one of the person that was throwing kurt to him was a Kazakh woman who was also starving to death. Her family was starving to death. And maybe that plants a seed for a perfect story. Maybe he survives. Maybe they fall in love. But you get the idea. I think it would be very tragic, but also beautiful, because it would show the story about two people who find meaning in a world that is trying to crush them.
I appreciate you mentioning this
Of
topic,
course.
this problem. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay. Қазақ халқының менталитетінде саған ең ұнайтын қандай нәрсе? What do you like most about Kazakh mindset or mentality?
Two words: hospitality and humility.
Oh.
So hospitality, I see this reflected. I mean, I have a gorgeous Kazakh wife who's my favorite person in this entire world. And she's a lot like her mother. She's very kind. She's very hospitable. And I've just never seen anything like it. We're in Florida right now. We talk about Southern hospitality,
Okay.
So Southern hospitality is unique for an American, but Kazakh hospitality is very different. Speaking of South, it's kind of hot, no? Очень жарко.
Yeah.
Как будет жарко по-казахски? Stuck. Okay, it's very stuck, but it's getting windy, so I like the wind. So anyway, the hospitality that almost feels like an effortless generosity that is sacred, and I have found that in every Kazakh household I've set foot on. Uh, but what really strikes me is just the humility of the Kazakh people. I find this especially in the boxing world. So boxing happens to be my favorite sports, and I love Central Asian fighters. You know why I like Central Asian fighters? Because they don't talk. They do their talking with their kulak.
Oh.
No,
Yes.
look at someone like Triple G, or even one of my favorite boxers right now, Gianni Bek Alamkhanullah. So this guy, this happened last year. I really got to tell you this, okay? So he fights a guy in Australia for the middleweight championship of the world. And you know how they like to hype up the fight, like on the weeks before, and usually fighters, they start, talking trash to each other.
Yeah.
So Kazakh boxers, they don't do that. So this Australian boxer was they asked him, what is one thing you want to say to Johnny Beck? And he said, I'm going to tell Johnny Beck, I'm going to effing kill you. Johnny Beck just kind of stood at him, like looking at him, kind of smirking a little bit, like you have no idea who you're dealing with. Anyway, fight night comes, and Johnny Beck completely beats the shit out of this guy. Okay, and he was so humble about it, and to me there is something very profoundly dignified about that, because it's a type of strength that doesn't need to announce itself. Because I kind of reflected on that, and I thought, wow, the Kazakh people, these are people who their great grandparents survived they starved to death in the brutal winters of the steppe, and after that the men were sent to the front in World War II to be used as cannon fodder for the Red Army. So they don't need to talk. Words don't mean anything to them. They know what the real struggle is. And that is reflected in their actions. And that humility, that strength, I really love that about the Kazakh mentality.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. By the way, did you try horse meat? Жылқы етін
Yeah,
көрдің бе?
I absolutely love it.
Yeah, really?
Kaza, right?
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
I love it too.
Yeah. You see, I've gotten stronger
No.
after eating Kaza. It has a lot of protein and iron.
What your parents think about it, about horse meat?
Well, my dad likes it. My mom, she actually got sick the first time because she's a big horse lover.
Oh.
She grew up around a horse. She rode horses, and I don't know. To her, she just felt bad. But I like it a lot. Yeah, I think she ended up liking it. But yeah, my dad definitely liked it more than she did.
Okay. And you speak Russian, okay? Yeah?
Плохо, очень плохо.
What about Kazakh? Do you want your kids speak Kazakh in the future? And сенің болашақта балаларың қазақ тілінде сөйлеген қалайсың ба?
Конечно. How do you say конечно in Kazakh?
Әрине.
Әрине? Yeah. Of course I want to. I mean, she's really tiny right now, but language is a vessel of identity, and I want her to, it'll be good for her. It's good for people to speak several languages. And I'll say this, one of the bad side, so one of the good things about globalization is that we're having this conversation right now. If it wasn't for globalization, I wouldn't be with Medina, we wouldn't be talking right now.
Yeah.
So you got to do something to keep the language alive. It's about language, it's about culture, and I want her to grow up and be a great American girl, which she will be, but I want her to know about her roots as well. So, of course, I want her to learn how to speak Kazakh. That way she can speak it with her apashka,
Okay.
Yeah.
Келесі сұрақ. Жалпы, егер саған біреу Қазақстан жай ғана дала мен Борат десе, сен не деп жауап берер едің? Okay. Would you say to someone who thinks Kazakhstan just steps and Borat? What would you say to someone?
Well, the obvious answer is that it's not. That's like saying America is just Walmarts and cowboy hats, right?
Yeah.
I will tell you this. I thought the first Borat movie was really funny. I'll tell you why it was funny. It's not because of what he was saying about Kazakhstan, which was absolutely ridiculous, but it's because he was trolling. It was just 90 minutes of trolling people that didn't know that they were being pranked. And when done right, that type of trolling can be hilarious. So that's what I think it's funny about the movie. But this is where I think where it went wrong. So the actor Sacha Baron Cohen, he's an asshole. Okay.
But I like him. He's funny.
Borat is a funny movie, but Sacha Baron Cohen is an asshole. I'll tell you why he's an asshole.
Why?
Because he could have just made up a country that has a name Stan at the end.
Oh yeah.
Like a made up country.
Yeah.
The people that were being pranked, they wouldn't have known the difference. Anyway, they can't even point Kazakhstan on a map. If you make up, I don't know, something Stan, they wouldn't have known either. But what did he do instead? Well, he took a country, he used a country with a real culture, a real history, a real, people, and turned it into a punchline, a global joke. And I think that was very crazy. Well, not crazy. I think it was cruel, and I think it was lazy. And you know what's even more telling is that after Borat, there is a movie he made in 2012 called The Dictator, which was meant to parody oil wealthy Arab states, Arab dictatorships like Muammar Gaddafi's Libya. So all of a sudden, he didn't use a real country. He used a made up country. I don't know if that's because he learned his lesson after offending a peaceful country like Kazakhstan, or if he was just too chicken shit to offend Arab dictatorships that might have taken offense to his movie in more serious ways. I think a little bit of both. But obviously it's not just steps in Borat. Yeah, it has steps, very beautiful steps, but Kazakhstan also has mountains. It has forests, it has deserts, it has a Caspian coastline. And as I was telling you earlier, it's one of the most strategically important nations on the world. It's the 9th biggest nation in the world. It has one of the largest reserves of uranium, oil, and gas. And it's definitely not the butt of a joke. So there's my answer.
Okay, thank you so much, Thomas. I was truly impressed by your deep interest and knowledge of Kazakh history, and this conversation left me inspired, and I sincerely thank you for sharing your thoughts. So I'm sure that this interview will inspire and surprise many Kazakh people.
I hope so.
Yeah. Томастың қазақ халқының тарихына деген терең қызығушылығы мен бай білімі шынымен де таңғалдырады. Бұл сұхбаттан ерекше әсер алып, риза болып отырмын. Мен сенімдімін, бұл видеодан кейін көптеген қазақтарға үлгі болады деген. Және де болашақ тарихтан басталады дегендей бұл сұхбатымызды аяқтаймыз. Егер видеоны соңына дейін қараған болсаңыз, міндетті түрде лайк басып, пікірлеріңізді қалдырып, қолдап жіберіңіздер. Рахмет.
Рахмет. Let's go eat бешбармак.
Go, let's go.